City Focus. And tonight, after months and months and months of trying to secure representation from the elusive New London Rotary Club, they have finally acquiesced and sent down two of their veteran members of the club to come down here to discuss the doings of a fine organization, the New London Rotary. And I'm delighted to have with me Barry Levinson and Ed Kramer. And Barry was very active in downtown New London and has just recently retired from Roberts Electric. And Ed Kramer is involved with the Yellowfront package stores, and perhaps when they get the camera on Ed, they'll note that he's a regular here on MetroCast with the weekly program Wine Talk. So, gentlemen, I want to welcome you to the program tonight.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. And before we get rolling too far, I would also like to mention again that we have some young folks working here tonight. We have from the Drop-In Learning Center, Zell Morales, who's in his last week as an 8th grade student at the Isaac School, and Takia James, who's in her last week of school as well at Bennie Jackson Middle School. It's grade 7. So the next time they're in, we'll be moving them into their new grades, and in Zell's case, she'll be moving to the Science and Technology Magnet High School here in New London. So they've been doing a great job, and I want to just recognize them for being here. Gentlemen, you've got your Rotary attire on tonight. You got a tie and shirt. You got your Beer Fest tie on. Talk to our audience about Rotary. Why Rotary? How'd you guys get involved? How long have you been involved? And kind of give us a little bit of a grassroots of what your organization's all about.
You want to start, Ed?
Well, I'll start on how I got involved, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, the importance of mentoring. And I was very fortunate in my life to have someone who sort of took me by the hand, and that person was Bob Weller, who had been the president of Mitchell College. And I had known him, I had gone to Mitchell, and I was out in the community, and he knew I was out in the community, and he called me up one day and he asked me to become a member of Rotary. He said, I proposed you for membership. And at that point, that was 42 years ago. At that point, I had very little knowledge of Rotary, didn't know a lot of what they did or who the members were. And my reaction was, I'll give it a try, and if I don't like it, I can always leave. And here it is 42 years later, and as I get up and tell the story, I still haven't made up my mind. I'm still trying it out. But I can tell you that it's been a great experience. We have a broad cross-section of people. The Rotary Club in New London is the largest club in the district, which runs all the way from the New York border all the way up to the Rhode Island border along the southern half of the state. We have 101 members currently, representing virtually every walk of life, professionals, business people, people from social service agencies, members of the clergy. We have
College, Coast Guard.
College, Coast Guard educational institutions. And a number of years ago, women became a part of Rotary, and I'd say probably 40% of the members are women, and they're probably some of the most active members. So that's been my involvement with Rotary over the last 40 years or so.
Well, I'm just a junior compared to Ed. I came in the 85, 86 time frame, and again, I was somebody solicited me at work and asked me about joining Rotary. I didn't know much about it. I had a bookkeeper at the time who'd been the bookkeeper at the store for 1 year longer than the store existed, and she said, that's a good one, you ought to get involved in that. And so I said, okay. I went to a meeting and I saw lots of people I knew, and interestingly, I looked around the room and there was Mr. this and Mr. that and Dr. this and Dr. that, and I said, oh, now I'm being included as an equal, because in Rotary you use a first name basis. And so I was impressed with the group and decided I would find a role for myself in that.
Well, one thing I have found interesting, and we're all local guys here, so I think we've got a common thread here, is that my introduction to all the service clubs was as a kid through baseball, because all the Lions, the Kiwanis, the Rotary, all sponsored baseball teams, along with fraternal organizations like the Elks. Bennie also sponsored a team at Bates Woods back in the day, and so all of the clubs are giving back. And just for the record, for those who don't know, I mean, I'm a member of the Kiwanis Club, and I think the Kiwanis, and we had Kiwanis and Rotary on a couple of weeks ago, the week of the Yale-Harvard race. And
By the way, Marty, we're not going to hold that against you.
well, I'll tell you, I've had a couple of your members who've been trying to recruit me, but I've been steadfast in trying to let them know I'm very content for all the reasons you enjoy Rotary. I enjoy the club of my choice. And one of the challenges with Kiwanis, I might add, is that to strive to be the club of choice in town. And I think that, quite frankly, in terms of numbers and some of your members, the Rotary is the largest club between the Lions and Kiwanis in town, and probably your membership equals the other two clubs combined. So there must be a reason for that, and I'm hoping we can get into some of those, what you're doing and why, and how do you attract your members? How do people join? Can they just show up and bang on the door and go, I'd like to become a Rotarian? Or are there some semblance of criteria to join? And once you're in, what are the expectations?
Well, I can answer part of that. First of all, if somebody is interested in joining the Rotary Club or learning more about it, if they visit our website, newlondonrotary.org, they'll find a wealth of information about the New London Rotary Club, Rotary International. There's a contact us. There's information about membership. With Rotary, there is a process, and in essence, we invite someone to join the club, and then they choose to join or not to join. So it's by invitation. If we learn that someone has an interest in joining, often a member of the club or any member of the club can bring that person to a meeting, see if it's something that they're interested in, and if they are, then their name can be proposed for membership. It goes through a committee process. Once it's then gone through that process, the person is then visited in person by what's called a Rotary Information Committee. That committee will discuss the individual obligations, both financial and attendance and rules, regulations, what's going to be expected of them, and ask them for permission to publish their name. If they so give us that permission, we then publish the name, and barring any objection in the club, and generally there is no objection at that point because an objection would have come up earlier, that person is then accepted or has the opportunity to accept the invitation for membership. Rotary was based on a classification system, meaning that you represent a work type environment. Where you work, you would be classified by your job as an occupation. And then that classification is then proposed. You then represent that classification in Rotary, and you represent Rotary in that classification outside of the Rotary Club itself.
Is that still widely utilized, that method for membership, or has the reins been loosened a little bit?
It is less enforced, and remember, we're talking, as Rotary International is an international, the amount of the importance of occupation and job description and so forth varies from country to country. So from an international standpoint, we still use a classification system, but we've never had a classification that has inhibited the growth of the club in any of the past years. Since in a club our size, we can have 10 people representing the same classification now. So as Rotary as a rule has liberalized the classification system.
Okay, well, I think that's important for people to note that, and I'd like to explore too the attendance. Rotary has is noted for a rather stringent attendance requirements, and I don't know if that is still in effect, or again, if that's something that has been loosened up. I know that Kiwanis years ago kind of modeled many of their administrative functions after Rotary, and over the course of time has loosened them significantly, and are, we're not doing.
There is some
of those
experimentation going on in the with Rotary clubs in terms of attendance. The bylaws are such that, from a Rotary International standpoint, you have to attend 50% of the meetings. Rotary meets once a week. If your meeting date falls on a holiday, that's exempted. So you need to make 50% of your meetings. So that would be like 26 meetings in a year. There are 52 meetings in a year or less, depending upon what day of the week you meet, or the holidays, etc. Clubs can enforce their attendance requirements based on the level of what they feel is locally permissible, or what they see. So in some cases, we have some people in the club that we have, from a traditional standpoint, we don't enforce the attendance requirements. For example, the superintendent at the Coast Guard Academy has government requirements which preclude, and currently, her ability to attend meetings on a regular basis, since she's a servant of the public servant with the government and has government obligations. So we liberalize the attendance rule in that particular case.
Mm-hmm. Is the weekly meeting universal, or is that up to the individual club?
Weekly meeting is universal. There have been some clubs that are trying out a bi-monthly meeting. The New London Club, it has one of the pilot projects. We started, there's a number of people in the club that had trouble attending a noon, 12:15 to 1:30 meeting on Thursday afternoon every week. Yet they wanted to stay in the New London Club. They didn't want to go to Waterford Club or Niantic East Lyme Club or Groton Club or Ledyard Club, Mystic Club, Montville Club, all of which meet at different times. They wanted to stay in the New London Club, but they preferred a morning time. So we started an experiment, and the board authorized an alternative meeting site. So currently at 7 a.m. on Thursday morning, there's a group that meets at Muddy Waters and has their Rotary meeting in the morning.
Is that every day? Because that group probably meets there every day.
And they're...
Unofficially, but officially on Thursdays.
7 a.m. on Thursday, every Thursday they have their meeting there. And they have a group of regulars, and many of them, for convenience, will go there because it's easier than for them trying to make a new meeting.
Yeah, I like that level of flexibility that you're developing organizationally. I think that's healthy, and
that was a pilot project for Rotary International, because what had happened in the past is, when that happened, because we were so big, a morning club would start, which would in effect be separate and apart from the noontime club.
And they would have a requirement to have 25 members regularly attend.
Right.
And then file for charter, et cetera.
But
these people wanted to be part of New London Rotary and stay a part of Rotary.
But just couldn't make that noontime commitment. So it's a morning division of the New London Rotary Club. We still come together at all of the formal occasions, like the installation banquet, the picnic. They work with the fundraiser with us. They're still considered to be part of our club, but it's just that most of the time they meet in the morning and we meet at noon.
They also have some of their own activities. They do some of their own activities as well, and their own projects.
Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, as per usual here on City Focus, so we're live, and if you'd like to be a part of the program, you certainly can, and the numbers are on the screen. If you'd like to call up, and locally we are at 860-440-3154, or if you are out of the local calling area, you can reach us at 800-253-2285. If you'd like to learn about, ask questions, offer some comments on the New London Rotary Club or Rotary in general. This is a good opportunity to learn about a very positive group in the New London community and well beyond. Why not talk to us about some of the things that you're doing locally? I mean, now, maybe some of the things that have been done in the past. I mean, one of the things, these clubs are flexible to meet current needs and current demands in society. The things that were, when we were growing up in the 60s, are not the same as they are, let's say, today. So why don't you kind of give us a little bit of an outline of what's happening with Rotary as we speak?
Well, Ed's gone to the website and has a list of some of the local projects for Rotary that we've done here locally, and I think that he can kind of scoot through the list.
Sure.
Well, probably the biggest thing, the most visible thing that we have done was in 2005 when it was the celebration of Rotary International's 100th anniversary. They wanted every club to come up with a major project. And we decided to do the boundless playground at Toby May Field, just past the hospital on Ocean Avenue, heading down toward Ocean Beach. And worked very closely with the city and essentially converted that into, the biggest thing about it is a handicapped accessible playground that even somebody in a wheelchair can utilize. And totally redid that playground. It's open to anyone, not just New London youngsters, but people come from far and wide. And I drive by there frequently, and I can tell you that even in the worst day in winter and the hottest day in summer, there's usually people there. Every day, tremendous use. That was a $250,000 project. A lot of the money from that was gotten through grants and through fundraising. And our fundraising project is the Brewfest at the Beach, which we do twice a year. And a lot of the money that we raised there went toward defraying the costs of this boundless playground at Ocean Avenue. As I say, it's probably the most visible, one of the most visible things that we've done. And it's for the children. It's for the children. And I know when my grandchildren come to town, I'm down there with them. Another visible thing that we did is the New London Gateway Project in 2011. We're fortunate to have a lot of talent in our club, as I'm sure you do in yours. And we have an architect by the name of Rick Gipstein who said that, you know, that the police station building is a gateway building as you come into New London. And it's a masonry building, it's brick, but it's pretty drab. And he looked for a way to brighten it up and came up with a project to erect nautical flags along the side of it, spelling out "Welcome to New London," the letters "Welcome to New London." And it just so happened that the flags are up there and then the letters are underneath it, so people who are stopped at the light or are driving by can see it, and it's a nice welcome sign. It's bright, it's colorful, and it's a welcoming site for
great job.
People coming into New London. And it just so happened, I might add, that along that time, the chairman who had been chairing the Brewfest at the Beach at the time passed away. He was a member of our club by the name of Phil Turner. And we took it as an opportunity to dedicate that project to him, and there's a plaque up there, and it says dedicated to the memory of Phil Turner, who generated a lot of the funds that we use to do the projects that we do. We also do scholarships at New London High School, and one of the other things that we do that's quite large, but maybe not quite as visible, is run a summer camp free of charge for junior high school students in New London. And we've been doing that now for, what, about 10 years?
1998.
1990, so that's about 15 years. Started by Tracy Reiser, and who was with her on that?
Well, what they did is they went to the city at the time and said, what is it the city needs? And they said, we need a youth program. and created, and Tracy brought the resources of Connecticut College, and they created a summer program for kids. At the time it was 30 and then went to 40 or 50, and it's a program where education is fun. Pfizer was a big sponsor originally. Now they're not really involved anymore as they've cut back on everything locally. But it was a project that is education and learning in the morning, in science, math, art, and when we meet with the kids once a year, some of the things that are interesting are they all talk about how much fun it is, and they're doing science projects. They're doing all the things that the schools can't do and can't afford to do because they're too focused on trying to meet requirements on education and not necessarily educating the kids in a broad sense. So they do science projects and they do math projects, and we've had a math teacher come to a Rotary meeting with the kids, and he would start doing math problems, which is addition, multiplication, division, and adding and subtracting out loud, and he would start calling off the numbers. And then you shout out the answer when you got it. And except for 2 accountants in our club, the kids all had the answer, and we're sitting there saying, wait a minute, add 3, subtract 12, divide by 4, trying to figure it out. And they loved it. And so it made learning fun. And the afternoon was recreational. They got to go to Connecticut College, swim in the pool, play games, and they really got, and of course they were fed breakfast and lunch, and it was a very good program, quite a collaborative program, and it's transitioned now to try and encompass more children. It's involved working very much with the Bennie Dover Jackson Middle School and Principal Ellison Ryan, who's gotten behind the program. And last year, I think there were 120 kids in the camp. And this year, Ed was just telling me that he believes the number is going to be up to 160 kids.
Free of charge to New London junior high school students.
So it's for junior high, middle school age students.
Right.
It's not younger and it's not older.
Right. Soft learning in the morning and physical activity in the afternoon.
And as far as
and they go on field trips as well.
As far as if somebody wanted to participate in that, then it's you contact it through the middle school. That's the contact liaison.
Now, are all kids accepted, or is there a cutoff?
I don't know the answer as to where the cutoff is, but there is a cutoff in terms of how much funding we have available for the project. So what they tried to do last year is we were funding 2 years ago about 80 kids, and they said that they could do 120 kids and they would work within the same budget. So I doubt they can do that if they're thinking about 160 kids. So
it means another
we
bus,
need the community to step in and support this project as well, not just the Rotary Club fundraising to try and meet that commitment. And we do get a lot of support from Coast Guard, and particularly from Conn College, and the New London Public Schools provides the bus transportation. So it's quite a collaborative citywide effort for a 5 or 6 week camp that these kids would learn a lot and have fun. And I think that's these kids wouldn't have any other project or place to go.
Mm-hmm. And who makes the decision regarding who's able to participate? Is that something the club does or the school does?
The school does. The club is strictly advisory, and they promote the Rotary ideals of service above self, but the club acts as an advisory role, but we don't participate in the activity that's done by the professionals at the school.
Okay, that's what was going to be my next question, is who's running the camp? I mean, are there Rotarians who take a direct role, or is that you're not really should, or you say the professionals. I mean,
Well,
like for
we
instance,
work with-
Tracy's a professional econ, for instance. I
Well-
mean, in terms of integrating and accessing Connecticut College, I would think her role would be very important in that.
Right.
Liaison.
That's a liaison for the facilities, but they don't determine the individual scope of what activities are going to go on. They make available the resources, and then the program, the people running the program would determine what activities they can take advantage of.
Okay. Do you use high school kids for counselors or not necessarily?
College kids.
College kids.
They're
Okay.
college
Vista,
mentors
Vista
and Coast Guard.
volunteers have been used in the past. Yeah.
AmeriCorps.
Okay,
AmeriCorps.
very good.
The other thing we do is facilitate things to make things happen for the camp. For example, there's also a partnership with Ocean Beach, and because of the relationship that we have with Ocean Beach, Camp Rotary is welcome down there to use facilities for nothing or for very little. Field trips, they need a bus to go out of town or they need something. Oftentimes there's a Rotarian that will step in and make it happen. So we do play a role from that point of view, but not on the direct administration of the camp.
Yeah, I remember the year I served as mayor. I was invited to a meeting that was down at the beach,
Yeah.
a luncheon actually.
We meet with the kids.
And that was a high-energy program that particular day with the
Yeah.
kids. And I was duly impressed with the program, and the kids all were seemed to be pleased to be there and having a good experience. So and having our local kids involved with that, to me, was as a civic leader, was very important. So what other types of things, you know, when I think of Rotary, and maybe I'm thinking throwback, but I mean, Rotary once upon a time was known for its fundraising efforts for the elimination of polio, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
It is correct, and I was going to say on the international level, the one major focus for polio, for Rotary, is the polio, ending polio. And it started in about 1985, and it was in many things in Rotary started at an individual level, go to a club level, go to a district level, which is a group of clubs. Our district is the southern half of Connecticut, 62 clubs, and then may be picked up on an international level. The polio effort for Rotary started in 1985 with the goal of eliminating polio worldwide. At this point, there are 3 countries left that have still had some cases of polio. Occasionally there's some flare-ups. And Rotary became important to the concept because it's the first time that a service club got involved with an international project. And parts of the problem early on and even today with the elimination of polio is getting out the polio vaccine into the endemic countries, such as in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Nigeria. And they found difficulties in that any governments or medical were not allowed into areas. The people didn't want them, they didn't trust them. And by having local Rotarians involved in the project, there were people they knew that could not only participate in it, but open the doors to allow the people to understand how you can eliminate polio. And so it's an effort that's been going on. The original campaign was for Rotary to raise $120 million towards that effort. And they're just completing a final effort of $200 million to match a Bill Gates challenge, where Bill Gates put up $350 million and challenged Rotary to match it with $200 million. So it took 1.2 million people to try and match Bill Gates.
That seems fair.
Yeah, but the effort and the governments around the country are responding, and the hope is that there will be this final eradication of polio in the world. And to be considered complete, you have to have 3 years in a row of no polio cases. So the most recently a major effort in India where they eliminated polio in India, and that eradication effort has been going on, and in support I happen to be able to participate in what's called an NID, a National Immunization Day, with my wife Pam in India. There were 22 of us from the East Coast, New Jersey and the East Coast. We traveled to India at our expense and did touring, and then spent 2 days up in Uttar Pradesh in Moradabad, in the middle of nowhere, going around with Rotarians there at train stations and everywhere, finding kids to make sure that they have had and got their polio vaccines, because you have to keep giving them the vaccines till it's all eliminated.
Who administers this program around the world? I mean, is it done by Rotary itself, or
World Health Organization is the main administrator, but they could not be anywhere near as effective without the combination of Rotary involved in the resources on the ground and in delivering it. In India, the Indian Rotarians are delivering the vaccines and giving the vaccines. And in the U.S., you're funding that effort. But there, they're funding and actually going out into the fields and working the NIDs.
Okay. I was just kind of curious. I mean, this is another area where Kiwanis, I think, has borrowed from Rotary, because we have embarked on a couple of worldwide projects, but we've partnered with UNICEF.
Right.
We have raised the money, and UNICEF is administering, because they've got the troops on the ground, so to speak, to make things happen.
Right.
And we've gotten a lot of success. I was curious whether you did something of a similar nature. It sounds like you have, and maybe even you're a bit more direct involvement than our organization has. The bottom line is achieving success on a very large scale, and
worldwide.
It's something to be proud of.
Yeah, worldwide.
Yeah.
But I also think of Rotary exchange programs. You've got Rotary Scholars. There are other avenues, some that are local in nature, but others that have a little bit more reach. As a matter of fact, two members of my club were Rotary Exchange.
Youth exchange students?
Well, they were young adults at the time. I mean, but I think they went to Brazil or someplace down in South
That
America.
was a group study exchange?
Yes.
Yes. The group study exchange program was an effort to take 4 or 5 25 to 40-year-old individuals that were in the early stages of their professional career and send them abroad with a Rotarian to spend 5 weeks in another country, touring and working within their vocation, both to share their experience here and learn in the other country from those experiences. And Rotary is changing that, and they'll be called, instead of group study exchange, they'll be called VTT, vocational training teams, where there'll be people that go out on a very specific basis with vocational skills, go to a specific area, stay in the homes of Rotarians in that area, and work on vocational projects there. In exchange, a team will come here and do that. Connecticut was one of the first to have, in our district, a vocational training exchange with South Africa, and it was an early education program that took place in Bridgeport, where a team from Bridgeport went to South Africa and did early educational training, and a team from South Africa came here and studied and presented their concepts on early education.
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing too with Rotary, you have, it appears to me from the outside looking in, kind of although many of your members are leaders in what they do, they're business people and in whatever occupation they're in, but there's leadership opportunities within the organization, within Rotary, whether it's, I mean, you're both past presidents. You mentioned a district which encompasses the southern part of Connecticut. I'm assuming you've got a leadership that oversees that. If I'm not mistaken, your wife may have held that position.
She was the Centennial Governor in 2004, 2005. Yeah.
So there's that, and as an international organization, there's got to be an international president and
Yes, you have a club which has a president. You have a district which has a governor. You have a zone which makes up districts. The primary function of the zone is for educating the incoming governors, and a zone makes up a voting block towards the international president. And the international president is elected by a vote of the zones. And those are based on a population basis. So districts on borderline sometimes will go one way or the other in order to build the membership up, to have enough to have a zone to carry a vote for a seat on the board of directors.
Does that carries internationally, or is that just here in the
all over
US?
the world. It's all over the world. Interestingly, the way that has developed is now there've been, because Rotary membership has been growing in other parts of the world, and particularly in Southeast Asia, India, the international representation on the board is higher than in the past. And like no business organization, in Rotary on July 1, every president of a club becomes a new president of a club. There's a new district governor, and there's a new international president and all new international officers. So everybody in Rotary rotates on July 1st, and there's all new officers. You have an executive staff and level for consistency, but you have new people coming in that are and bring new ideas and hopefully continue to improve on the old ideas. And that all takes place on July 1st. We've had 2 district governors in our past history. Back in about 48, 49, we had a governor, which was Jim Hammond. Then, about 50 years later, in 2004 and 5, then Pam Akins. And then we have now Jerry Tom, who will become governor in 2 years. So she's the governor nominee till July 1 when she becomes the nominee.
She's so modest. She hasn't brought that up in conversation. I see her quite frequently.
So, so this will be the 3rd time in our club history that we've had a district governor covering the southern half of Connecticut. And it's tougher for the governor from the end of a state. A lot of times they come from the middle, where it's an hour to go every way. When you're on one side, every time you go, it's at least an hour or 2 hours, or depending upon I-95, can be 3 hours to get to where you need to go.
Yeah.
Has anybody in your club moved beyond that governor level to a zone leader or international president or trustee or whatever? Is that next level?
Well, you have to be a past district governor to move up to a zone level, a director. Right now, our zone encompasses from New York through all of the New England states, all of Canada and Western Russia. That's our zone. And every 2 years, a director is selected, once from the U.S., once from Canada or Russia, once from the U.S., alternating. So we alternate those positions. And so it's quite a process and a very small number of people that are up at that level. But Pam has served as a zone training leader in charge of zone training for the complete zone. And she was a training leader in San Diego, which is where each year all of the incoming district governors in January, February go for a week in San Diego for training. This is the way when you're having all new officers coming in, somebody's got to train them. The incoming president meets with all of their governors, 523 in the world, from all over the world. Programs are done in 7 languages, so you have hit pieces depending upon what language the presentation's in. so it's quite interesting to think of an international organization like that. And so she was a training leader for a year, which is an honor to be selected for that. You go out a week early, and then a week's training to train the incoming class, and I got to tag along, and I became a partner trainer. So I would work to train the spouses of the incoming governor.
That's really good stuff. I mean, I've done similar stuff in Kiwanis, and the Lions, I think their format is relatively similar, but I've always been impressed with Rotary. They seem to be a cut above. I mean, and that's not to disparage Lions and Kiwanis, but to just, you guys seem to reach high and strive to tackle projects that may on the surface, or when you're sitting around like we are talking about things, why don't we think about trying to do this? And it's a big idea. It's not like you're looking at small things. You talk about the playground. I mean, that locally, that was a big project, a lot of money, and there was also sweat equity involved with that as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And we're obligated, we've stepped up to the plate where we said, we'll maintain it. We just didn't build it and walk away from it. 2, 3, 4 times a year, we have work parties that go down there and tighten the nuts and bolts and go down there with rakes and paintbrushes and do the maintenance that's required to keep it so that it's a functioning playground. So we're committed to that project. It wasn't just build it and walk away.
We've done a number of other local projects.
Yes.
That may not be known for Rotary, but since we use the Ocean Beach facility for our May and October Brewfest for fundraising, we recently donated $5,000 towards Save Our Beach, Save Ocean Beach group. And it redid the whole all the picnic tables at Ocean Beach. In 2009, we redesigned the New London Welcome Center, which is that small little, I call it a little caboose there, sitting at the edge of the municipal parking lot, to beautify it so that it's more attractive for people coming into town, and also with curbing, make it safer, so that as cars shooting down the road, they're less likely to run into it.
I volunteer there from time to time, so I can appreciate that.
We're protecting you.
Yeah.
You know, these are projects that we do in the community, but at our weekly club meetings, they're packed full from 12:15 to 1:30. There is always a speaker. The speaking program is usually from 1 to 1:30, but from 12:30 to about 1 o'clock, it's all club business. And we do what we call glad and sorries. People get up and they're happy about something, or they're glad, and that gives everybody a chance to get the flavor of members.
And don't forget, it's a singing club.
And that you are.
And we sing as well. We sing 4 or 5. We have
we don't have to sing well, but we sing.
We have a pianist that plays and accompanies us to make sure that we're on tune. But some of the other programs that we're really proud of, for example, we do a Student of the Year from every school in New London, private, public, and parochial. And the schools, each school is tasked with picking a Student of the Year to represent that school. And that student, with the student's family, is invited to a Rotary luncheon where they are honored. And the principal or the guidance counselor gets up and talks about the student. The teacher gets up and talks about the student. The student gets up in front of the group and delivers a little speech about what they do or what their aspirations are. And they're presented with a backpack full of gifts from Rotary members. And it's a very impactful and impressive thing for a student to come before a group like the Rotary Club and get up and talk before them. And every school does it every year. So that's something that we're very proud of, and it's one of our best programs.
Well, again, geared toward youth.
Exactly, yes. Now, sometimes we do things on the spur of the moment. For example, when New London High School won the football championship, one of our members, by the name of Reed Burdick, brought it to our attention that There was no money in the budget to buy them rings, commemorative rings. And he said, that's not right. Those kids deserve rings. And he said, you know, it's going to cost so much money. And by the time that meeting ended, he had passed the hat and raised enough money so that we could buy the kids rings. We went one step beyond that, and again.
And that was a little over $2,000.
Not only did we buy them rings, but we invited them to a Rotary meeting to be part of our meeting, where we presented them, along with the coaches, with their rings. So those are some of the things that we do. If we see a need, we try to help fill it.
And that's good stuff, but that was kind of a spur-of-the-moment,
Right.
and you can't budget championships.
No.
Right.
But for instance, if
We have a do-good fund. The do-good fund is something that has been in the club for years. It's voluntary contributions, which tend to average about $40 or $50 an individual Rotarian during the year. Sometimes if people, we have a weekly raffle, and when you have the raffle, you don't get the money, you get to tell where you want to donate it. And so people will often give it to the do-good fund. Well, the money from the do-good fund is used, there's a committee for that, and it's used for one-time individual need for an individual within the community that may have a need that could not get that need met by other organizations. And it's strictly on an individual one-time basis. So it could be for, we've had for a new bed. Somebody just got into an apartment, or they were short on what they needed for, they just got a job and then they're short on money to be able to put a deposit down on a facility to live in. And sometimes the deposit money would come up with, or a bed, or sometimes clothing, individual needs. So these are, we've had fire victims where they've gone out and given them some money to live on until they could get themselves together. And comments are like, why are you doing that?
it's the right
Well,
thing
that's
to do.
what we do. You try and do it. And the essence of Rotary and how it started is still fellowship and having a good time, getting to spend time with your friends each week, meeting new people, generally trying to do good in the community on a group basis. You get the good feeling. If you didn't put any money in for the rings, it doesn't make a difference. You get the same benefit of seeing those kids get the rings. So you get to participate whether you can afford to do it or not yourself. But you get the feeling of knowing Rotary International is on an international level. Humanitarian projects are a big, as a big function, and business ethics are a focus of Rotary. Trying to maintain, they have a four-way test in Rotary, which is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? These are just ideals to try and give you a basis of ethics for your business, and to have Rotary participate in encouraging good business ethics.
Is business networking part of Rotary membership? Is it encouraged or discouraged?
That's changed over the years. In some clubs, networking is significant. In other clubs, it's discouraged. Internationally, it's quite different. In many countries internationally, if you're not in the upper class elite, you're not in Rotary. You just can't get in. You have to be an elite member of the community in the upper crust to get in. It's not necessarily that way in the U.S. today. And some of the best workers aren't the elite people. They're just people that want to do good. There's the whole basis of Rotary was fellowship and business association. And when they originally started out, they would meet at each other's workplace, which was a way of networking. And you would choose to work with your fellow Rotarians as opposed to someone else if you were going to do business. New London Club has not encouraged the networking, not particularly discouraged it. I mean, if you have picture fines, and each week, if whoever's pictures in the papers or whatever, you're paying a fine for it.
So that's what keeps the politicians out?
Yeah, and well, you can't come in as a politician, as a political office. That's not a classification. But when your picture is handed out, there's generally a telling why the picture's published. So you're getting a little publicity for it. But it's not as much emphasis on network. It's not a network club. But it's hoped that people will tend to work with their fellow Rotarians that they would enjoy being with. They would tend to favor them if it came to a business situation. And that sometimes it's true and sometimes it's not.
Well, obviously, you're meeting these people on a weekly basis or almost a weekly basis. You get to meet people, and the expectation, the hope is that when you need their services, you will go to them first. You may not, you may not end up doing business with them, but at least you've got that acquaintance. You've got that relationship.
It's not a requirement.
No.
No.
You know, one thing, we're getting down to our last couple of minutes. One of the things that I was duly impressed with quite a few years ago was a concert that Rotary sponsored at the Guard Theater, where you had brought in Itzhak Perlman.
Yes.
I don't know if that was just your club or if it was a series or a group of clubs, but what a show! What a
group of clubs.
It was fabulous.
Marty, I'm glad you brought that up because I was president of the club at the time. And I didn't have to worry about what I did for my year.
That was a Polio Plus project.
Millie Devine was really a real coordinator of that event. But that was the kickoff of our polio campaign. And we raised funding and netted over $90,000 for both our polio commitment and a portion of that went to the L&M Hospital. We combined with 6 other shoreline clubs to promote the event. And we had, in fact, the president of Rotary International, the first time a sitting president of Rotary International has ever been in our district, was here for that event, and to present him with his Paul Harris recognition.
Fantastic. Good stuff. One thing I'd like to mention, folks, before we close, because I've known these gentlemen a long time, and also the year, I believe, when you were president, Jim Calhoun, the recently retired basketball coach at Connecticut, spoke at your club.
Yes, he was there, and Gino R.M. has been there a couple times.
Yeah, well, when you had Calhoun, I remember you, because you were president, you invited me, I was involved with the council at the time, to offer greetings from the city. So that I enjoyed. As well, and also my ex-wife actually babysat your daughter when she was quite a young girl.
Nathan Hale.
So, and your uncle was my Babe Ruth coach over at Mercer Field in Savin. So
small world.
We have this little connection here at different levels, and it's part of being a community and giving back. And what Rotary's doing is fabulous, and I'm glad you guys were able to spend an hour here with me tonight and share with my audience what Rotary's all about and all the good work you're doing. And I really thank you for taking time out.
Make sure they visit our website if they'd like more information or to get in touch with the club.
Or either one of us. Thanks for giving us the opportunity.
Well, perhaps we can have you back sometime where we can explore some things and give you a chance to promote upcoming club activities.
You know where to find us.
I sure do. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, and we'll see you again next week on City Focus.